This is Hiring on All Cylinders, live from HR Tech. Hello, Podcast Land, and all my new friends here at the 19th Annual HR Technology Conference and Exposition. Rob Stevenson here for Intello. Another classic installment of Hiring on All Cylinders is coming your way from our cozy booth here next to registration. I'm very excited to introduce my current guest. His name is Kevin Grossman. He is a VP of Research and Analytics at Talent Board. Kevin, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks, Rob, for having me. I appreciate it.
So, you have a session I definitely want to talk about. Really want to hear your thoughts on the space, but you are a podcaster yourself, yes?
I am. I love podcasting. I'm a big podcast consumer, and in the past year I've launched 2 podcasts myself, one for the Talent Board where they do the Candy research,
right,
and one on the side that's more of a learning career development show.
I love it. For the Candies, what kind of topics do you cover?
So it's really primarily covering recruitment, improving candidate experience, what companies are doing as it impacts the business bottom line. So I talk to a lot of employers that are the companies that have won our Candy Award, that have participated in our research. And I also talk to the sponsors who underwrite our program and support it, and where they're coming from in that vantage point and why candidate experience is important to them, as well as some of the volunteers that make up what we call our Candy Council, which is a think tank group that are volunteers that help support the program as well. So across the board there.
I love it. You mentioned that you feature some of the customers who have participated in your research.
Yes.
So what is that research in service of? What does it look like?
Sure. No, thanks for asking. So Talent Board is a nonprofit research organization all about measuring candidate experience from pre-application all the way to onboarding. So just post-hire, we stop there. And so we ask employers to complete a survey, that's round 1 as we call it, about self-assessment of their recruiting process, what they're doing from nuts and bolts, but also how they're addressing candidate experience and trying to improve it. And then if they can stop there if they want and get benchmark research just from that, and they get an anonymous aggregate comparison to other companies and industries, but if they want to keep going and actually try to compete for one of our awards, then they have to send a similar survey to a targeted population of their candidates, most of whom did not get the job. At least 80% have to be candidates that didn't get the job or still in process.
Okay.
And then that is the data that we then use based on those candidate ratings, and those companies that are above a certain baseline of from a data point perspective and our analysis that we do, they'll win a Candy Award because they're raising the bar. They're going above and beyond as it relates to improving the candidate experience, again, for the majority of candidates that aren't getting the job.
Yes. So we've seen some similar takeaways in this space around stuff like candidates have no idea assessing how they did on an interview, right? They might come out and say, oh, I blew that, I'm never getting the job, and then the team actually liked it. And that information is often very surprising to the companies, right? They have no idea this is going on. So what kind of insights do you present these companies that really surprises them? So one of the things that I think that there's always this inherent confirmation bias wherever we go, right? We always want to see what we want to see. But when they start looking at the data, and when this program first started, there was a lot of companies that were hesitant because they're like, do we really want to know? Yeah, exactly.
Do we want to see what we're being rated at? But they did, and it's really kind of caught fire since. So some of the insights is, what's really clear is that there's just not enough communication or feedback loops, especially even in the later stages of the process, for those that are making the interview stage and don't get the job. That's a big missed opportunity for companies to give some kind of feedback and bring closure to those candidates,
right,
as well.
A lot of companies are kind of gun shy about giving candidate feedback in the case of rejected people.
I call it being specifically ambiguous because you can't because I mean there's certain things you can't say to candidates you have to avoid, but there is some information that you can give, and a lot of companies are being more bold about giving positive general feedback, like, listen, these are things I think you should work on. You didn't get the job now. But the one thing I really want to drive home is kind of the potential for business impact. So one of the things that we measure, and we can definitively show now globally, not just in North America, is all those candidates that had an overall horrible experience. And that's like a 1-star experience. We use the Likert scale, 1 to 5. Sure. When all those that had a 1-star experience, and we asked them the question, how likely are you to change the relationship with this employer that you've applied for? 41% globally says they will sever that relationship. That means purchases if they're a consumer-based business. That means applying again. That means referral networks.
Exactly.
But conversely, those who have a 5-star or great experience, again, most didn't get the job, right? 64% of them says they will increase that relationship. So And that business impact's going to vary from company to company, but it's real and it's there, and we can actually definitively show that potential impact now.
It's a little counterintuitive to say that you can't neglect your rejected candidates because you think, they're not going to work here, but that's short-sighted, right? You have to think of them in terms of their whole life cycle and their whole possible potential relationship to you.
Maybe that person has a referral that does fit the bill, right? Or maybe that person in 6 to 9, 12 months actually will be qualified for a job. You want to nurture that, and as much as you can, and it does. And a lot of organizations, they tell us, and this is the reality of the recruiting world, I can't touch everybody.
Yeah,
I can't do it, and especially on the application side, and that's where most candidates get dispositioned, right? Because they're not going to make it past that. They're like, you're not qualified. But there's still an opportunity to do some nurturing and not to bring at least acknowledgement that you're interested in my company, and give them closure and be immediate about it when you're done. If you're not going to consider them again right now, tell them that.
Right.
And a lot of companies are really hesitant with that, of bringing that closure, and that's just a critical missed opportunity, I think. So
absolutely. And then even viewing those candidates as a referral network is definitely an underutilized channel there, because if you can talk to them and agree on why they weren't a good fit and say something like, the team really liked meeting you, but there were these areas that we'd love to, if you were more developed on, like we could continue this in some other way in the future. If they're warm on you, and then they can agree, okay, yeah, maybe I'm not a good fit after all. And then that opens a conversation to, okay, well, do you know anyone else that would be a good fit for this?
Exactly.
These other roles, like you can start having that conversation then.
And it gives them a perceived fairness that they hadn't had before, right? If they just know that, listen, you're at least giving me a nod and letting me know something. Maybe you're not going to give me the feedback that I might be looking for, but you're at least bringing closure to the process, and you've been good about it throughout, right? I've seen it time and again in our survey data where there are many negative comments, but because we have a lot of open-ended questions, so there's a lot of positive comments of saying, listen, I'm not getting get the job, but you treated me fair.
Yes.
And that's the perception you got to get. You got to have that.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So you had this session yesterday, empowering a better candidate experience, Capital One's transformative business of recruiting. How did it go?
Oh, I thought it was well received. We had a pretty full room. And it was myself and Christina McClune, who's now the Chief People Officer at Capital One Canada.
Cool.
And it was me doing kind of the first third of the presentation, just talking about Talent Board and sharing some macro data points and trends, especially the one I mentioned about business impact.
Sure.
And then segued to her, and she was like the case study of the session. So she was actually sharing what Capital One has done, which she was an integral part of, and her team, in the past 5 to 6 years. And one of the things I think she really has done well to kind of drive home over the years, and they're a multi-year Candy winner as well, based on their Candy experience, is making the internal shift that our primary customer of recruiting is the candidate. Mm-hmm. It's not leadership, it's not the hiring manager. Our primary customer, because that's the way they got to think about it, is the candidate.
Yes.
And that was something that took a little bit of work to do, but once they did that and overcame that everything revolved around that afterwards. And now they have amazing programs. They have a mandatory candidate experience workshop that all new recruiters, anybody any around the world in Capital One, they have to attend this workshop every single year.
I love it.
It's amazing, yeah.
So then when you say viewing your candidates as a customer, is that just to kind of prioritize in people's minds, like, this is the number one thing, if we don't get this, then all these other pieces don't fall?
Well, it is, because again, the potential there is, again, a loss of revenue.
Right.
If you're a consumer-based business, and I can tell you multi-year Candy winners like T-Mobile and AT&T, for example, right, the cell phone business, Sonos sells those really nice speakers.
Yep.
Those organizations like that, they know that resentment can translate into lost revenue, because we all are perpetual candidates, and we all have our own stories, right?
Of course,
the horrible experience we had. And I know that I have a couple, and I still viscerally feel this way. I will never do anything with those organizations again, based on my experience that I had.
Yeah.
I won't.
Yeah.
And I will carry that to it. And people, this is real. This happens. So they know that they'll lose those revenue dollars. But then even referral networks that aren't getting because of that translates into revenue down the line too, because if they didn't have those people that were in the jobs to help the company grow, and a lot of our companies that participate in our research now are now starting to do those quantifiable calculations of what the cost truly is. We can show that there is a cost. They're gonna start doing it, because it's gonna vary from company to company what that cost truly is. It's huge. It's huge.
I love it. Kevin, this has been awesome. Great chatting with you.
Thank you very much, Rob.
It's been a blast. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks again.